So we finished the these exam, the mock exam, the simulation, right? To see how you do with some things in English. Actually, you have a very good level. So now we're going to start with the topics. Let me see. Okay, 1 second, please. I can find my document 1 moment. And I'm going to send you the slides too, so you can check them with me, okay? So you have this material. These are the slides. Okay, so let's start now. Okay, so according to what we need to see, there is a part that is a recommendation for you to check later. It says some useful learning tips. So we're going to check this later. These are some tips that can help you to study and that can help you to pass the test. And actually, it's not only about languages, but it can help you for anything you have to study. We will check this later, right? The focused mode of thinking, diffused mode of thinking, the Pomodoro technique. This is very good, especially if you ever have to deal with procrastination, that you're like, we'll do it later, like ahorita lo hago, and you don't do it, you don't study. So the Pomodoro technique can help you. We will check this later, but I would like to start now with the topics, right? Okay, so we will see. So general grammar, we're going to have a general grammar review. So, let's see. I don't like this. I prefer to use explore. Yes, here. Okay, so yes, we check also some the parts general talking about the English skill. So let's start with this topic. We're going to have the general grammar review. Okay, so just for you to remember, what is grammar? Can you please read, Cody? What is the meaning of grammar?
It refers, this one?
Yes, that one.
Okay. It refers to how we combine, organize, and chain words, parts of words, and groups of words to make meaning.
Excellent. Okay, so this is the meaning, right, of grammar. And we're going to check the parts of a speech. parts of speech in Spanish, it would be like partes discursivas. So this is like some basic information we need to work with some exercises that we're going to see during the exam. So first, we're going to see, right? We have, in English, we have nouns. That's one part of a speech is like a family or a group of words. Nouns, verbs, adverbs, adjectives, determiners, prepositions, pronouns, conjunctions, and exclamations. Those are 9. Those are 9 parts of a speech. Okay, so 9 partes discursivas. Okay, so what is the meaning of these parts of a speech? So parts of a speech are groups of words that have a special use. Every word you read, every word you read anywhere in a book, it has words, and every word has a category and has an use. So it's very important to know what you are reading, what kind of use it has. All right. For example, it's not all words are the same. I could tell you, for example, understand. What is understand? This is a verb, it's an action, right? But I could have understandable. And what is understandable? This is an adjective. And the difference between these two words is the use. El uso de estas dos palabras no son lo mismo, right? Esto es para una acción y esto es para describir un sustantivo. Okay? So, every word has a use. Every word has a purpose. So sometimes in the exam, you will have the opportunity to modify words. Vamos a tener que modificar palabras. A lo mejor necesitamos modificarlo para que haya un adverbio. Maybe we need an adverb. Maybe we need an adjective. So we need to know the parts of a speech. Okay. So first, you see here the nouns. That's the first one, sustantivos. So I would like to ask you, what is a noun? In your opinion, what is a noun? Who could tell me what is a noun?
Pronombres.
Careful, pronouns, los pronombres son otra parte discursiva.
Is the subject of the sentence of the thing, the person, animal, or whatever we were talking about?
Exactly, very well. A noun is an animal, an object, a person. Exactly. Anything that exists is a pronoun. If we have, for example, an object like window, so the window is a noun. If I say the name of a person like Cody, so Cody is a noun, right? Let's see, we have countable and uncountable. Just we will give like some examples very quick. What are some examples of countable nouns? Can you give me an example? A countable noun?
A person.
Cups.
Good. A person, dog.
Box.
Good. How about an uncountable noun?
Time.
Yeah.
Sugar.
Time.
Coffee.
Liquids.
Exactly. Proper noun.
Names.
Mhm,
Country.
very well.
Cities.
City.
Names of places, names of people, names of organizations, companies, very well. Common.
Mhm.
Animals. Buildings.
Mhm,
Objects.
exactly. Very well. Everything that we write in small letters, right? Que se escribe con minúsculas, right? Todo lo que empieza escribiendo minúsculas is common. Very well. Abstract.
I don't know.
Any idea about abstract nouns? Okay, we said that the nouns are everything that exists, son todo lo que existe, right? So nouns are can be for some things you see, but there are other things that you don't see that receive a name, like some concepts. So, for example, we could say, just for one thing, love. Love is an abstract noun because you don't see love, or you don't see it as an object, right? Like something physical, right? You cannot touch it, but it's the definition of something more complex, that it's a feeling, right? So love is an abstract noun.
Honesty.
Sorry?
Honesty.
Honesty, exactly.
Wins.
Honesty,
Can it be the air?
wisdom. No, in this case, air
Not
is
the
not
air?
abstract. Air is something physical.
Okay.
Something physical, but for example, these are things that actually they don't exist, but they are concepts to explain things that are abstract, right? Honesty, love, wisdom.
So feelings.
Not necessarily, but
No
yes, feelings. Yes, all the feelings, for example, they are nouns, abstract nouns.
Okay.
Could be, for example, economy,
Okay.
history. These are abstract nouns too, because they don't exist like objects, like things you can touch, but they're definitions. Okay, this is important to identify them, because we have, for example, honesty is the noun, but honest, what is honest?
Adjective.
Adjective.
Adjective. So it's a different part of a speech. Okay, so that's what you need. That's what we need to identify. And with this class, we need to identify different parts of a speech. Okay, what are the collective nouns?
For example, band of musicians. A
Very
band.
well. Band. Another example.
Family.
Sorry.
Can it be a team?
Team. Very well. Team. Family. A group. If we talk about animals, for example, a herd.
Colony. Colony of ants.
Very well. A colony of insects. Very well. Ants. Exactly. Colony. Good. If we talk about birds, for example, we use the word flock, right? Flock of birds. Que sea como una parvada, right? Flock of birds. Lions, una manada. How could we see that? That's a pride of lions. We could have also pack of wolves, una jauría de lobos, a pack of wolves. Okay, so these are collective, because even though, what would you say, family, la palabra, let's say band. Do you think band is plural or singular?
Singular.
Is singular, exactly. So the word is singular, but the meaning is something collective, something plural, right? So it's singular because you have band, or you can have bands, but the word is singular, but just with one, you mean like many of them. Okay. Well, so those are the nouns. Okay, those are the nouns. We will jump to the pronouns. That's the one you just said one moment ago. Okay, pronouns. So it's related to the nouns. Like we say pronombres, right? Pronombres es el que sustituye al nombre, right? So we would say pronouns are those ones that substitute the nouns, right? So you need to know, right? What is the each of these groups, cada palabra está en un grupo y cada grupo tiene un propósito. So the nouns, obviously, they cannot be used for actions, right? Los sustantivos no se pueden utilizar para acciones o para describir. So the same way, each group, each part of a speech has their specific use. Pronouns, for example, with the use of them is to substitute the nouns. Su propósito es sustituir a los sustantivos. You have, for example, the personal pronouns. What are the personal pronouns?
I, me, you.
Very well. I, you, they, we. Excellent. Which ones are the object pronouns? Can you tell me the object pronouns?
It,
Yes, it. Very well. Another? Object pronouns.
His, her.
Me, you, him, her, it, them, us.
awesome.
Very well. So just to make sure, what is the difference between he and him? Or between they and them?
The first is personal and the second is possessive.
For possession.
No, be careful. This is not possessive. Yes, possessive is my, and those are adjectives, right? With mine, yours, his, that we're going to check in a moment, the possessive. Him and them, those are not possessives. But what is the difference between he and him? Or they and them? Or she and her? Or when do you use he? When do you use him?
When
you
we
talk about
talk about
him.
Okay, we choose Alejandra, and then we can listen to Rocio, please.
When are you talking about him or you're talking about them?
Okay. And Rocio, what do you think? When do we use him? When do we use them? Him, what is the difference between he, him, they, them?
I can use them when I talk about some things or people, and him is singular.
Okay, so what is the
Like-
difference between he and him?
He's noun. and
He is
him
pronoun.
is talking about him.
Okay. Or what is the difference between we and us? When do you use we? When do you use us?
When something is about me and other people, and we when talking about us. It's
Okay, I think we are a little bit lost. Okay, so personal pronouns, very well. Personal pronouns, they're also called subject pronouns. Okay, this is very important for you to understand the difference between subject and object pronouns. Okay. So a sentence has these three important parts, right? We have subject. To make any sentence, to create any sentence in English, we need a subject. What else do we need?
Verb and complement.
Okay, verb and complement. Okay, very well. An example could be they love dancing. Okay, very well. They love dancing. So in this example, you have they because this is a subject of the sentence. They do the action, right? They do the action. Subjects do actions. Objects receive actions. Okay, so it goes like that. The subject is the one doing the action. Entonces aquí they hace la acción. ¿Cuál es la acción? Amar. Okay, dancing. Dancing is the object. Es el objeto. Es lo que es amado. Por eso, object pronouns no me refiero a un objeto, a una cosa. Right? Object can be people. Object puede referirse a personas. Así como un sujeto puede ser incluso un objeto o un animal, right? Eso no tiene nada que ver, no hay que confundirlo, cuidado, porque a veces dicen sujeto es la persona. No, sujeto puede ser cualquier cosa que ejerza una acción. Object no es un objeto, no siempre es un objeto, sino es un sustantivo que puedo utilizar, que recibe el efecto de la acción. So that's the key, right? When you say they love dancing, I can substitute dancing with they love it. They love it. Okay. What is it? Is dancing. So what is the difference between they and them? Okay. Let's say, for example, my parents love their children. My parents love their children. Ahorita con los posesivos. So my parents, what pronoun? ¿Cómo puedo sustituir my parents? What is the pronoun?
They.
They love their children. What is the pronoun?
Them.
Them. Okay. So you know how to use they and them. So what is the difference between they and them?
So they is the personal pronoun is in the beginning of the sentence. It means that is the object. And them is the first one is the subject, and them is the object.
Correct,
It talks
yes.
about the person who refers, they are receiving the action.
The action.
Very well, exactly. They do the action. Them receive the action, right? I do the action. I love. You are the object. Now, I could say you love me. Now, it's not possible to say you love I, right? You say you love me because me, it's an object pronoun. When I say object pronoun, means that I receive the action. So in this case, if you love me, I am the object. I receive the effect of the action. If I say I love you, I is the subject because I do the action. Okay, so that's the difference between a subject and an object pronoun. That's why we have he and him, right? For example, how could you say, okay, he, okay, we could say Mike loves his friend. So you would say he
Loves him.
He loves him. Okay.
He loves him.
So that is the difference between him and he. Okay. It's very important to understand the difference between the subject and the object, because for what we're going to see in a moment with the verbs. Do you have any questions about the personal and the object pronouns?
No.
No?
No,
Okay.
teacher, thank you.
Very well. All right. So we're going to see now the possessive pronouns. What are the possessive pronouns?
My.
Mine, yours, Ours.
Very
His,
well.
her.
Mine,
Her.
yours.
His, her,
Mhm.
its,
Theirs, its, ours. Okay, with the S, because my, your, his, the other one, those are adjective, possessive adjective. And mine, yours, his, hers, these are the pronouns. Okay, because they substitute. I could say, this is my car. Okay, so when I say my car, I can substitute and simply say, this is mine. So mine substitutes that you mentioned car. Okay, recuérdense, pronombre sustituye. Okay, that's the idea. Okay, very well. Those are the possessives. Very well. What are the relative pronouns?
Which. That.
Exactly. We have them here, right? These are the relative pronouns that we use in relative clauses. Very well. Who, which, whose, whom, that. Okay. Here you have the examples. The woman who called yesterday wants to buy the house. Okay. Which are the reflexive pronouns?
Myself, yourself.
Yeah, very well. Myself, yourself, themselves.
Himself.
Okay, perfect. So those are the pronouns. So far, we learned two parts of a speech, two groups of words, the nouns and the pronouns. Any questions about nouns, pronouns?
No.
Okay, do we understand the difference between nouns and pronouns? Do you understand the difference between nouns and pronouns?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So now we will check the next category, the next parts of the speech, verbs. Okay, so what are verbs, guys? What is the meaning of verbs?
the action of the
Verbos.
noun.
Very well, actions. Okay, verbs are actions. Actions are verbs. Very well. So here we have some examples. We have transitive, intransitive. Let's check all of them. Okay. Now, in English, you have some actions that are, it's not in this category, but we also have verbs that are, these are, oh, I forgot. They are stative verbs. And we have also active or action verbs. Maybe you remember verbs, stative verbs and action verbs. Okay. For example, when you say, I eat pizza. Well, so I eat pizza is an action verb because you can see what the person is doing. But if I say, I live in Mexico, so I live, this verb is not an action verb, it's a stative, right? So there are some verbs that are actions, and interestingly, o puede ser como paradoxically, como irónicamente, hay verbos que no son acciones propiamente, right? For example, those are the stative verbs, los stative verbs. For example, live, be, have, know. Those are stative verbs. Because I can tell you, for example, yo podría decirle a cualquier persona, please run, por favor, corre. Okay, please run. So you can visibly see the person performing the action y puedes decir si está corriendo o no. Es posible ver eso, right? You can say, please sit down. Ok, entonces puedes ver cuando la persona se sienta. Estos son action verbs. Most of the verbs in English are action verbs. La mayoría de los verbos son action. And there are just like about 30 or 50 stative verbs. But what about the other verbs that I told you? For example, the verb leave. Digamos que ustedes, no sé, le queremos decir a alguien, no sé, cualquier cosa, una orden. So you say, leave. Please leave. So what can the person do? How can the person show me that they leave? Is it possible? How can I show you that I leave? So, yes, it's complicated, right?
It's not possible.
Leave is not possible, yes, because the verb leave is a verb, but it's not an action. Yeah, so that's what I mean. Some verbs are not actions. Why is it important? Because, for example, there are some topics in English. You need to know the difference between the action and the steady verbs. If I tell you, I can tell you, for example, please watch the TV. Okay, so you sit and you watch the TV. But if I tell you, please be, so what can you do? You can't do this, right? You cannot perform the action. Okay, por favor, sé, be. Okay, maybe I could tell you, be respectful, but still is not an action, right? The same with
Yeah.
have. Have. How can I show you that I have? Right? And the same with no. Please no. Por favor, sé. Del verbo saber. It's not possible, right? No. Okay, so those are action and steady verbs. But don't worry about the steady verbs. Like I told you, there are like 30 or 50, and the great part of them, of the verbs, they are action verbs. So that's why very often we say that verbs are actions. Okay, now we will see a difference between transitive and intransitive verbs. Have you ever heard the definition of transitive verbs or intransitive verbs?
Maybe transitive verb is used only in relation to an object. For example, I bring a book.
I've been sorry, what? Can you repeat?
I bring a book. I bring anything. I bring my notebook. I bring my backpack.
Very well. So that is a transitive verb, right?
Yes. For example, if I say I bring, I only say I bring without an object. Is a intransitive verb.
Exactly. Very well. So do you remember that when we were explaining the pronouns, we told you, right? The object pronouns are the ones that receive the action. But sometimes some verbs, they don't need an object pronoun. Okay, so a transitive verb is, for example, the verb love. When you say, I love, you cannot say I love only. You need to say more. You need to love someone, you need to love something. But if you say I love, it's not correct. Okay, so I love what, right? You need to love something, you need to love someone. So that's why we say the verb love is transitive, a transitive verb. Okay. She kissed. She kissed. She kissed whom? She kissed what? Right? So you need to say who she kissed to or what she kissed. So the kiss is another transitive verb. So these verbs cannot go alone. You need to say the object. I love pizza. She kissed her boyfriend. And these are object. These are object. In this case, a pizza is a noun, but it's an object. Her boyfriend is a noun, but is the object. Okay, so love and kiss, they are transitive. What would be examples of intransitive verbs? Like your partner explained very well. She knows, she said, right, you need the object or not. That's the key. Here, for example, all these verbs that you see in these pictures, they are intransitive. For example, what is this verb in this picture?
Run.
Run.
Run. So do you need to add something else to run to make sense? For example, let's imagine this is Usain Bolt, the fastest man alive. Usain Bolt runs. Do you need something else to complete the verb? Or if you say Usain Bolt runs, do you understand?
Yes.
Yes, you understand, because the verb run is intransitive. What is the next verb? This one with the minions.
Smile.
Smile. Okay.
Loves.
Minions. Smile. Do you need to say something else?
Nope.
No.
No, right? Okay, very well. So that's the intransitive verb. Okay, and the other one is, what is the
Fly.
verb?
The
Yes,
birds
very well.
fly.
The birds fly. Very well. The eagle flies. Okay, so you don't need to add anything else because the verbs are complete just by themselves. You don't need to add anything else. Some verbs can be transitive and intransitive, but in some contexts. But this is the difference. Any questions?
Example, swim could be
Swim, excellent.
an intransitive verb.
Yes.
Very
Okay.
well. It's intransitive. You swim. You don't need to say anything else. You cannot swim another person. No podemos nadar a otra persona. Right? No puedo decir yo nado mi hijo. Yo nado mi amigo. Right? Okay. So when you use it, it's about yourself. Se sobreentiende que el verbo está afectando al sujeto. Right? Okay. So that's
Okay.
the intransitive. Very well. So this is the difference. Very well. Why is this important? This is what I told you, right? Maybe you see, but what are we learning all these categories? Because much of the grammar rules are easier to understand if you know the categories, if you know the parts of speech. For example, in the topic, passive voice, maybe you remember, right? The passive voice. A passive voice has just one restriction. You only use passive voice with transitive verbs. But did you know that it's impossible to use passive voice with intransitive verbs? Because we lack the object, which is what passive voice focuses on, right? So if you say, for example, I love pizza, how can you write that in passive voice? I love pizza in passive voice.
Pizza is love.
Okay. Voice is loved.
Very well. Pizza
Mhm.
is loved. You can say it by me, but just
By
read
me,
like pizza is loved.
Pizza is loved.
Okay. She kissed her boyfriend.
Her boyfriend is
Her
kissed by
boyfriend
her.
is kissed by
Her
By her.
boyfriend,
Is kissed
excellent,
by
was
her.
kissed. Okay, very well. So in passive voice, you can see that with intransitive verbs, it's impossible. Okay, so here you say using Bolt runs. How can you write this in passive voice? You can't. It's impossible, right? Okay, very well. So these are some examples, right? Why when you know very well the parts of speech and these like subcategories, it's easier to understand. Okay, well, we have transitive. Intransitive, we already explained. Regular, can you give me examples of regular verbs, please? Maybe you can say it. And if you don't want to say it, you can also write on the chat. Tell me just some examples of regular verbs.
Work,
Work, exactly.
walk,
Talk, walk, very well. So they are regular. Why are they regular?
vote,
Mhm.
run,
How do you
What
know that they are regular?
are
because
regular?
they don't finish with ed.
Because they
went,
finish with ed. Very well.
No. Mhm.
Okay, now please give me some examples of irregular verbs.
Just speak,
Swim,
Mhm.
went,
just take,
write,
Good.
understand,
run,
begin,
swam,
Think.
Perfect.
wrote,
Okay. So the irregular verbs, it's like impossible to know how they would change, but you need to memorize it, right? Okay,
Yes.
very well. Those are the irregular verbs. Participles. What is a verb? A participle verb.
They are in perfect tenses.
Mhm. What do
with
you
the
mean?
auxiliary, have has with the auxiliary.
Okay. Can you give me an example of a participle verb, please?
won't cheat,
Mhm. Can you please maybe write it on the chat? I think I didn't hear you really well.
verb with ing,
Mhm. Very well. A verb that ends in ing or ed. This is a participle verb. Why is it called participle? Participle means participio, right? So participle comes from participar, right? Like in Spanish, participate, right? Okay, but why do we say participle? Because participle means like kind of share. Es como compartir, right? So these will be like verbos compartidos, que comparten algo. What does that mean? What do they share? Well, this case that they share some things with the noun. Okay, they share with the noun. For example, you can say a broken radio or a broken TV. So in this case, we have the verb. So this verb shares with the adjective, shares this like very similar things. We have a verb. The verb is broken, but broken is also an adjective. So that's why we say that it shares. It's sharing with the adjectives and it's sharing with the noun. A broken radio, for example. Okay. In the regular verbs, so we would need to use ed. So for example, you can say could be danced, right? Bailado, okay? But in the case of the irregular verbs, then you will need to use the third form, right? Which would be, for example, stolen, broken, understood is the third form. Okay. Now we also have the participle gerunds, right? Because we have gerunds with ing. But when you say, for example, cleaning, you know that cleaning means limpiar o limpiando, right? Okay, so cleaning could, if you say cleaning like limpiando, like when you say I'm cleaning. So this is called a participle gerund. Participle gerund. If you only say cleaning, this is a gerund, but not participle. Cleaning the bathroom isn't fun. Okay, so here you have participle gerund, and this is just a gerund. But yes, let's just think that the participles are those third form of the verbs, which in Spanish would be like those that end in ado, terminación ado, or ido in Spanish, right? Okay, for those verbs. So those are the participle verbs. Gerunds that we see are those ones with ing. Okay. Infinitives. What are the infinitives?
Any verb that have the word to. For example,
Exactly.
to love, to eat, to run, to believe.
Very well. So to before the verb, to go, to eat. Very well. So we need to use to. You know that sometimes we have to decide between the gerund or the infinitive. For example, I love to dance. I love dancing. Right? Okay, very well. So now modal verbs. Can you please tell me all the modal verbs in English? What modal verbs do we have?
Can,
Can,
could,
may,
may, should,
ought,
shall.
Should. Can,
Mhm.
might, may.
Okay. Might, may. Okay, so all of them have
Would.
different functions, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Very well. So let's see, for example, let's explain. When do we use, for example, may? Should, just as an example. May and should. When do we use may and when do we use should?
May is,
May is
like
formal.
a permission.
Permission.
Very well. And
And
should?
should. For recommendation. Or
Exactly, for a recommendation. Okay, when do we use could?
is the past tense, the past inability.
Very well.
It's more informal.
Excellent. Very well. So could can be the past of can, or it could be like a supposition, right? They're called modals. They're called modals because these are functional verbs, right? So for example, if you say, or you can also talk about moods, about how you feel about the verb. For example, if I say I walk, and now I use a modal verb, I can tell you how I feel about this verb. For example, I can walk. So is not only walk, it means I can. How I feel about the verb walk, I feel I can. I should walk. How do I feel about walk? That I should do it. It's on, right? So that's why they are called modal verbs. Some characteristics about the modal verbs, as you saw, as you learned during your course, is that the verb is always in base form. That means that you can never add anything else to the verb when you have a modal verb. And another thing is that the modal verbs are used to make questions. Okay. Very well. So those are the modal verbs. Okay. Phrasal verbs. What are phrasal verbs?
Carry on,
Okay, very well.
break down,
Excellent. So phrasal verbs, exactly as you said, those are compound verbs, son verbos compuestos, right? Compound verbs that they're usually made with verb. You have verb plus a particle. They are called particle, but the particle can be, it's usually a preposition or an adverb. And you can have 2 or 3 words to create the modal verb. Sorry, not modal verb, phrasal verb. And usually the meaning changes, right, from the original sentence. For example, we know that give, we know the meaning of give. But if I say give up, doesn't mean dar arriba, right? So it's a different meaning. So the meaning changes. Those are the phrasal verb. Also, we have separable and unseparable phrasal verbs. And it's very important. I sent you a book yesterday that is full of those verbs. It's very, very important that you learn some new phrasal verbs, because in the exam you will have them, and they're actually not very common, or they're not too common in the very technical or formal English, okay? But they are very common in the spoken English. For example, one could think about the verb rendirse. Rendirse in English, you say surrender. But people don't go around saying surrender, right? La gente no dice surrender, así como que es muy formal. So people prefer simply to say give up.
Give up.
Don't give up, because don't surrender sounds like, I don't know, a knight, an army, a soldier, something poetical, like don't surrender in this life, right? So that's why we have phrasal verbs, because they are sometimes it's like speaking in code, es como hablar a veces como en código, como en clave, but they are more familiar, they're more friendly, like people feel more comfortable, more natural when they use the phrasal verbs. Okay, very well. Finally, guys, imperative. What are the imperative verbs?
Commands, orders.
Very well, commands or orders. Go, don't go. Eat, don't eat. Very well. Remember that we use imperatives with action verbs, because the steady verbs doesn't make sense, right? Okay. Very well. So, well, we're going to learn tomorrow. We will continue. You can check the slides that I sent you. Here you have some examples between transitive and intransitive verbs, so you can see, okay, so that is clearer when we use transitive, when we use intransitive. Tomorrow we will talk about adjectives, about adverbs, and we will practice, which is the most important thing. When we have the exercises from the exam, the lingua skill mock tests, or the simulation test, you will see that this is very useful, this topic, okay? Very well. So this is just like reminders, right? So thank you guys for joining, and well, we'll see you